Why would one of the biggest beauty brands in the world risk everything by teaming up with one of the most controversial comedians on the internet right now? On the surface, it looked like just another quirky marketing move, E.L.F. Cosmetics rolling out a funny little ad campaign. But within minutes of that campaign going live, the internet exploded. People weren't laughing, they were furious. Because this wasn't just about makeup. This was about Matt Rife, a comedian who has been collecting scandals like souvenirs. His name has been dragged through the horror community for buying the infamous Annabelle doll. His jokes have left fans divided, and his past comments about women have resurfaced at the worst possible time. And suddenly, E.L.F. Cosmetics, a brand that built its empire on inclusivity and female empowerment, had chosen him as their new face. Almost overnight, the campaign turned into a PR nightmare. Clips from old podcasts were being reposted everywhere, fans were calling for boycotts, and beauty creators were demanding answers. People weren't just asking, why Matt Rife? They were asking, did E.L.F. really not know who they were partnering with? Or was this whole thing planned? And that's where the story gets even more interesting, because the deeper you dig, the more it feels like this wasn't just a bad business decision, it was a calculated move. From haunted dolls to a corporate apology that made things even worse, this is one of those scandals that only gets messier the further you go. Before the makeup drama ever hit the spotlight, Matt Rife had already been stirring up chaos in one of the most unexpected places, the horror community. Just a few months ago, his name started making headlines after he and fellow YouTuber Elton bought the actual haunted collection once owned by Ed and Lorraine Warren, the real-life paranormal investigators behind The Conjuring and Annabelle. Yes, that means Matt Rife is now the legal guardian of the infamous Annabelle doll. For some people, this sounded like a publicity stunt. For others, it was flat-out terrifying. The Annabelle doll isn't just a movie prop, it's a legendary artifact that many believe carries dark energy. And when word spread that a stand-up comedian with a shaky reputation was suddenly in charge of it, fans in the horror community were not impressed. Concerns grew even louder after a chilling coincidence. A paranormal investigator who once toured with the doll was found dead not long after. Police said nothing suspicious was involved, but online, people quickly started connecting the dots. Suddenly, Matt wasn't just a comedian anymore. He was the guy joking around with haunted artifacts, and for many, that was crossing a line. To make matters worse, Matt even talked about wanting to open the collection up for public tours. Horror fans were horrified, no pun intended. They saw it as disrespectful, a money grab, and yet another example of Matt not taking things seriously. In their eyes, this wasn't just a comedian testing new waters, it was a dangerous mix of ego, ignorance, and bad energy. And just when the paranormal drama seemed like it was dying down, Matt Rife somehow found himself in even hotter water, this time not with ghosts, but with makeup. If the E.L.F. ad confused people, the resurfaced clips from Matt's past downright enraged them. Within hours of the campaign going live, old podcast footage that Matt had desperately tried to scrub from the internet came flooding back. And the content wasn't just controversial, it was flat-out disgusting. On an episode of the Stiff Socks podcast, Matt went on a rant about women's bodies in a way that had people cringing. He joked about private parts, making comparisons so crude that even fans who once defended him said they couldn't stomach it anymore. It wasn't just off-color humor, it came across as mean, targeted, and demeaning. The backlash grew even louder when Brooke Schofield, who was dating Matt at the time, revealed that those comments hit closer to home than anyone realized. She admitted that what he was mocking so casually was something personal to her, and that he had said it publicly the very day after they'd been on a date together. Imagine finding out that the person you're seeing is going on a podcast and trashing you in front of thousands of people. For Brooke, it wasn't just humiliating, it was a complete betrayal. The internet pounced on this, labeling Matt as not only immature but cruel. And for E.L.F., this was the moment the campaign completely unraveled. Fans weren't just saying bad choice. They were furious that a brand claiming to empower women had handed a massive platform to someone with a track record of tearing women down. And if that wasn't bad enough, another bombshell clip was about to make things even worse. Just when it seemed like the podcast clips were the peak of the backlash, another reminder of Matt's comedy style resurfaced, this time on the biggest stage of his career. In his Netflix special Natural Selection, which dropped just last year, Matt opened with a joke about a woman getting a black eye for not knowing how to cook. The joke wasn't clever. It wasn't edgy. It was domestic violence played off for laughs. And the reaction was immediate. Fans who had discovered Matt through TikTok, where he built a reputation as the charming, flirtatious comedian who bantered playfully with women in the crowd, suddenly felt like they'd been misled. The nice guy comic image crumbled in an instant, replaced by a version of Matt who seemed to punch down at the very people who helped build his career. Clips from the Netflix special spread like wildfire, paired alongside the podcast footage. Together, they painted a picture of someone who wasn't just making one bad joke years ago, but someone who consistently leaned on misogyny for material. And now, with E.L.F's campaign live, people were asking, how could a brand that markets itself as pro-women ignore all of this? For E.L.F, the backlash wasn't just about a bad collaboration anymore. It was about hypocrisy. How could a company that champions diversity, empowerment, and female leadership tie itself to a comedian who made his name at women's expense? The outrage only grew louder, and E.L.F's own reputation was suddenly on the line. What really made this controversy explode wasn't just Matt's past. It was the fact that E.L.F Cosmetics had built its entire brand on being the exact opposite of everything he represents. For years, E.L.F has marketed itself as the beauty company for everyone. Affordable, inclusive, empowering. Their board of directors, majority women. Their campaigns, constantly celebrating diversity, representation, and female athletes breaking barriers. So when E.L.F rolled out an ad campaign starring Matt Rife, the same comedian who made crude jokes about women's bodies, the same guy who opened a Netflix special with a DV joke, people were stunned. It wasn't just a bad casting choice. It felt like a betrayal. On TikTok and Twitter, angry fans weren't just dragging Matt, they were dragging the company itself. Comments poured in, "This is a brand that brags about empowering women? This is who they put in front of us." Beauty creators started calling E.L.F out by name, some even tossing their E.L.F products in the trash as a statement. And while throwing away makeup you already paid for might not change much, the symbolism was powerful. A brand that claimed to stand for women had aligned itself with someone who openly mocked them. To many, it proved that E.L.F's messaging was all talk, no substance. That's when the calls for accountability grew too loud for E.L.F to ignore. But instead of calming the storm, their response would only make things messier. When the backlash became impossible to ignore, E.L.F finally broke their silence. The company released a statement across their social media, claiming they had heard the community and admitting they had missed the mark. They explained that the campaign was meant to spotlight beauty and justice in a playful way, but reassured fans that they were listening and learning. On paper, it sounded like the kind of corporate apology we've all seen 100 times. But here's the problem, the ad was still live. Even after saying they understood the outrage, E.L.F left the campaign running on their platforms. To a lot of people, it felt like the brand was trying to have it both ways, apologizing just enough to quiet critics, while still cashing in on the buzz Matt's name was generating. And that didn't sit well. Fans began pointing out the contradictions. E.L.F claimed to fight beauty and justice, while they themselves had quietly raised their product prices earlier in the year. They claimed to empower women, yet chose a comedian who built his reputation making fun of them. It was a perfect storm of bad optics, and the apology wasn't closing the wound, it was ripping it wider open. Then came the speculation. What if this wasn't an accident? What if E.L.F had chosen Matt because of the controversy, not in spite of it? Suddenly, what looked like a bad decision started to look like a calculated one, a marketing stunt designed to get exactly the reaction it was getting. And that theory would only grow stronger as the conversation shifted from outrage to suspicion. As the backlash raged on, a new theory started to spread online, one that made the whole situation feel even more calculated. What if E.L.F knew exactly what they were doing? Think about it. Matt Rife wasn't just some random choice pulled out of a hat. He was already one of the most polarizing comedians in Hollywood. His name trends every time he opens his mouth, whether it's for his crowd work clips, his Netflix special, or his endless controversies. So why would a billion-dollar beauty company, with entire teams dedicated to research and branding, suddenly act surprised by his past? For some creators, the answer was simple. They didn't. They wanted the drama. In a digital landscape where attention is everything, outrage can be just as valuable as applause. Every angry TikTok, every boycott tweet, every rant on Instagram, all of it was still putting E.L.F's name in front of millions of people who might not have been talking about the brand otherwise. This strategy isn't unheard of. American Eagle pulled a similar stunt when their campaign with Sydney Sweeney sparked heated debates. The backlash didn't hurt them, it kept them trending. In a twisted way, controversy has become the new currency of marketing, and E.L.F may have just cashed in big. But here's the catch. When you gamble with controversy, you're also gambling with trust. And once your core audience feels betrayed, it's a lot harder to win them back. Which brings us to the bigger question. Was this a brand misstep, or was it a blueprint for how companies will chase attention in the future? At the end of the day, this story was never just about Matt Rife or a single makeup ad. It was about something much bigger, the way controversy has become a business strategy. E.L.F. Cosmetics could have chosen anyone to headline their campaign. They could have picked a rising beauty influencer, a celebrity known for championing women, or even just someone with a clean slate. Instead, they went with a comedian who had a trail of scandals attached to his name. And whether it was ignorance, arrogance, or cold-blooded calculation, the result was the same: outrage, headlines, and endless conversations about their brand. For Matt, the scandal only reinforced the image he's been building, the controversial comic who thrives off shock value. For E.L.F, it put a massive crack in the carefully polished image they've spent years curating. And for fans and consumers, it raised an uncomfortable question: how much of what we see from brands is genuine, and how much is just manufactured drama designed to make us talk? Because maybe this wasn't a mistake. Maybe this was the plan. In an era where attention is everything, outrage has become one of the most powerful marketing tools of all. But the cost of that strategy is trust. And once a brand loses trust, no amount of controversy can buy it back. So was this just a clumsy ad campaign gone wrong, or was it proof that shock value has replaced authenticity in the beauty world? That's the bigger picture here, and the answer might tell us more about the future of marketing than we want to admit.